Don't spend that Kennedy half-dollar. One tiny detail could make this ordinary-looking coin something collectors would desperately want. The scratches, wear, and strange mint mark feature may be hiding a story most people would completely miss. Before you throw it away or spend it, look closely, because the secret could be hiding right in front of you. First up, the 1977 with D. Kennedy half-dollar is an interesting piece of American coinage, especially when a coin appears to have an unusual mint mark feature or another genuine minting error. At first glance, a circulated example with scratches and surface wear may look like nothing more than an ordinary 50-cent coin. But in coin collecting, small details can sometimes make a major difference. The important question is whether the unusual feature is actually a recognized mint error or simply damage that happened after the coin left the United States Mint. The Kennedy half-dollar has an important place in American history. The series was introduced in 1964, shortly after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. In November 1963, the coin was created as a national tribute, with the obverse portrait of Kennedy designed by Gilroy Roberts and the reverse designed by Frank Gasparro. The series became one of the most recognizable modern American coins. The U.S. Mint continued producing Kennedy half-dollars for decades, although their use in everyday circulation eventually became much less common. The 1977 with D was produced at the Denver Mint, identified by the D mint mark. PCGS records a substantial production of 31,449,106 examples for the 1977 with D issue. That means the normal 1977 with D half-dollar is not considered an exceptionally rare date by itself. However, unusual varieties, genuine mint errors, and coins surviving in exceptional condition can attract additional collector attention. The coin is made from a copper-nickel clad composition, rather than silver. PCGS describes the 1977 with D half-dollar as 75% copper and 25% nickel over a pure copper center. The U.S. Mint's specifications for this type of half-dollar give a composition of 8.33% nickel with the balance copper. The standard specifications include a diameter of approximately 30.61 millimeters, a thickness of about 2.15 millimeters, and a reeded edge with 150 reeds. Its standard weight is around 11.34 grams, with PCGS listing 11.30 grams for the 1977 with D issue. One of the most important things about a coin described as a D-era mint mark is understanding exactly what the error is. The presence of a D mint mark alone is not an error. It is normal for a coin struck at Denver. For a 1977 with D Kennedy half-dollar to have significant additional value because of a mint mark error, the unusual feature would need to be documented and authenticated as a genuine mint-produced variety or error. Collectors should never assume that an unusual-looking letter automatically represents a rare error. This becomes even more important when the coin is described as very fine and circulated with scratches or surface damage. Circulation wear can remove details, distort lettering, create unusual shapes, and produce marks that might initially appear to be mint errors. Scratches, gouges, polishing, environmental damage, or other post-mint problems generally do not create valuable mint errors. Therefore, professional examination is extremely important before assigning a major value to the coin. The rarity of a normal 1977 with D Kennedy half-dollar is also worth understanding. PCGS notes that high-grade examples can become considerably more desirable. Its records indicate an auction record of $9,200 for a 1977 with D and MS64, while PCGS's current price information lists values far below six figures for ordinary examples. NGC likewise reports that circulated 1977 with D examples are generally worth well under $1, while pristine uncirculated examples can reach considerably higher prices depending on grade. That makes the claimed $560,000 market value extremely important to verify. A coin should not be described as being worth $560,000 simply because a website, video, seller, or social media post gives that number. A value at that level would require extraordinary evidence, such as a clearly documented and authenticated major mint error, an established variety recognized by leading grading services, and credible market transactions supporting the valuation. Based on the available PCGS and NGC information, $560,000 should be regarded as an unverified claim, not the established market value of a standard 1977 with D. Kennedy $half. Still, this does not mean the coin should be ignored. The real treasure may be hidden in the details. Collectors should carefully inspect the D mint mark, date, lettering, portrait, rim, edge, and overall strike. Look for doubling that affects multiple design elements, unusual die characteristics, missing design details caused by a genuine striking problem, incorrect planches, major off-center strikes, or other recognized mint errors. A single scratch or strange mark is not enough. Collector demand is strongest when an unusual feature can be proven. A coin authenticated by a respected grading service such as PCGS or NGC has a much stronger foundation for valuation than an unverified raw coin. Photographs of both sides, close-up images of the mint mark and suspected error, accurate weight and diameter measurements, and information about the coin's provenance can all help specialists determine whether something unusual is actually present. For collectors who discover a 1977 with D. Kennedy $half, the best advice is simple: do not clean it. Cleaning can permanently damage the surfaces and reduce collector appeal. Do not scratch the mint mark, polish the coin, or attempt to repair unusual areas. Keep it in a protective holder and have the suspected error examined by an experienced numismatist or professional grading service. The 1977 with D. Kennedy $half may not be a $560,000 coin simply because it carries a D mint mark, but that does not make the search pointless. The real excitement of coin collecting comes from discovering something that ordinary people overlook. A worn $half sitting in an old collection, box, drawer, or inherited coin jar can sometimes contain a feature that deserves closer investigation. In conclusion, the 1977 with D. Kennedy $half is a fascinating modern American coin with historical significance, recognizable design, copper-nickel composition, and an interesting place in the Kennedy series. Its normal value is modest, but a genuinely rare and authenticated mint error could change the story dramatically. The key is evidence. Before believing a spectacular valuation such as $560,000, collectors should verify the exact error, authenticate the coin, determine its grade, and compare it with documented sales. The hidden treasure is not simply the date or the D mint mark, it is the possibility that the coin contains a real, identifiable, and professionally recognized error that most people would never notice. Next up, the 1981 with P. Kennedy $half is a fascinating piece of American coinage that can become especially interesting when an example appears to contain an unusual mint mark characteristic or another possible minting error. A circulated coin with scratches, surface wear, and natural toning might look ordinary to most people, but experienced collectors know that unusual details can sometimes deserve a much closer examination. The important question is whether those unusual characteristics were created at the United States Mint or developed later through circulation, damage, cleaning, or environmental exposure. The Kennedy half-dollar has an important place in American history. The series was introduced in 1964 as a tribute to President John F. Kennedy. Following his assassination in November 1963, the obverse portrait was designed by Gilroy Roberts, while Frank Gasparo designed the reverse. Kennedy's portrait quickly became one of the most recognizable images on American coinage, and the half-dollar has continued as an important part of the U.S. coin series. The 1981 with P. Kennedy half-dollar was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, identified by the P Mint mark. According to PCGS, the regular 1981 issue had a mintage of 29,544,000 coins. That makes the normal 1981 a relatively common issue rather than an automatically rare coin. PCGS also notes that circulated examples are generally fairly common, while very high-grade examples become increasingly scarce. The coin has a standard diameter of approximately 30.61 millimeters and a weight of about 11.30 grams. It is made from a copper-nickel clad composition, with an outer layer containing 75% copper and 25% nickel surrounding a pure copper center. The edge is reeded with approximately 150 reeds. These measurements are useful for collectors because weight, diameter, and edge characteristics can help identify unusual plaqués or other possible mint errors. One of the most important details in this example is the description of a P error mint mark. The P itself is not an error. It is the normal mint mark for a 1981 Kennedy half-dollar struck at Philadelphia. Therefore, if the coin is being described as an error coin, the exact abnormality must be identified. It could involve an unusual appearance, doubling, placement, shape, or another characteristic that was actually created during production. This distinction is critical because scratches and circulation damage can sometimes make an ordinary mint mark look strange. A coin that has been heavily circulated may have dents, scratches, abrasions, corrosion, or other post-mint alterations. These conditions do not automatically create collectible mint errors. A genuine error must generally show characteristics consistent with the minting process. The very fine circulated condition described for this coin is also important. Very fine coins show noticeable circulation wear, and scratches or surface damage can reduce collector appeal. Natural toning may be attractive to some collectors, especially when it develops evenly and naturally over time. But toning itself does not automatically make a coin rare or extremely valuable. The reported $490,000 market value, therefore, deserves careful examination. There is currently no evidence in the major pricing and auction information consulted here that an ordinary circulated 1981 with P. Kennedy half-dollar is worth anywhere close to $490. Zeroth PCGS records an auction result of $2,990 for a 1981 with P graded MS68, while Great Collections reports sales of 1,981 P examples, ranging from a few dollars to several $1,000s, depending on grade and characteristics. That does not mean an extraordinary 1981 with P error could never attract a much higher price. It means that a figure such as $490,000 should be treated as an unverified claimed value, not as the established market price for the regular coin. To justify such a spectacular valuation, the coin would need to possess a truly exceptional and professionally authenticated era or variety, with strong evidence from recognized specialists and ideally documented auction results. This is where the hidden treasure aspect becomes interesting. Someone could easily find an old Kennedy half-dollar in a collection, drawer, inherited box, or group of miscellaneous coins and spend it without realizing that it deserves examination. The coin's value, however, would depend on what is actually unusual about it, not simply its 1981 date or P-Mint mark. Collectors should carefully inspect the P-Mint mark, date, lettering, portrait, rim, reverse, and edge under good lighting and magnification. Look for characteristics that repeat across the design and appear consistent with a minting process rather than isolated scratches. Measurements can also be useful. A significant difference from the normal specifications may justify additional investigation. Most importantly, collectors should never clean or polish a suspected error coin. Cleaning can permanently damage the surfaces and may make professional evaluation more difficult. If the suspected error appears convincing, the safest approach is to preserve the coin in its current condition and consult an experienced numismatist or professional grading service. Collector demand is driven by rarity, authenticity, condition, eye appeal, and documentation. A common circulated Kennedy half-dollar has limited value beyond its face value, while a rare, authenticated mint error can attract much stronger interest. Professional certification can provide an independent assessment of the coin's authenticity, grade, and recognized variety or error. In conclusion, the 1981 with P. Kennedy half-dollar represents an interesting piece of modern American history. It has a 30.61 millimeter diameter, approximately 11.30 gram weight, copper nickel-clad composition, reeded edge, and a substantial mintage of 29,544,000 pieces. The normal issue is not extraordinarily rare, but an authentic and unusual mint error could make an individual example far more interesting. The claimed $490,000 value should not be considered confirmed without authentication and documented market evidence. The real treasure may be hidden in the details of the coin itself. That is why collectors should never casually spend or discard an unusual old Kennedy half-dollar. Examine it carefully, protect its original surfaces, verify the suspected error, and obtain professional authentication before believing an extraordinary valuation. A coin that looks ordinary today may still hold an important story, and sometimes the search for that story is where the real treasure begins. Next up, the 1974 with D. Kennedy half-dollar is an intriguing piece of American coinage, particularly when an example appears to contain an unusual characteristic around its mint mark. To the average person, a circulated half-dollar covered with scratches, dirt, and surface wear may look like nothing more than an old coin with little significance. To a knowledgeable collector, however, unusual details can be a reason to stop, examine the coin carefully, and investigate whether it contains a genuine minting error or recognized variety. The Kennedy half-dollar has an important historical background. The series was introduced in 1964 following the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in November 1963. The United States Mint moved quickly to create a coin honoring the president. The obverse portrait was designed by Gilroy Roberts, while the reverse was designed by Frank Gasparro. The Kennedy half-dollar subsequently became one of the most recognizable modern American coins and continues to be collected today. The 1974 with D. Kennedy half dollar was produced at the Denver Mint and carries the D mint mark beneath Kennedy's portrait. The issue had a substantial production run, with PCGS recording a mintage of approximately 66,300 coins. This means that the ordinary 1974 with D is not considered extremely rare simply because of its date and mint mark. Nevertheless, particular varieties, errors, and exceptional examples can be much more interesting to collectors than ordinary circulated pieces. The coin's physical specifications provide another important part of its identity. The 1974 with D. Kennedy half dollar has a diameter of approximately 30.61 millimeters and a standard weight of about 11.30 grams. Its thickness is approximately 2.15 millimeters, and its edge is reeded. The coin is made from a copper nickel-clad composition with an outer layer containing 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper center. These specifications are useful when examining a suspected error because unusual weight, dimensions, or edge characteristics can sometimes point toward a genuine mint production problem. The phrase D-error mint mark requires special attention. The D mint mark itself is completely normal on a 1974 with D. Kennedy half dollar. It identifies the Denver Mint and is not by itself an error. If the coin has a genuine mint mark error, the exact abnormal characteristic must be identified. A collector would need to determine whether the mint mark has a recognized variety, unusual doubling, abnormal placement, or another feature that can be demonstrated to have originated during the minting process. This is especially important because the coin is described as almost very fine, circulated, scratched, and dirty. Circulation can create numerous marks that may look unusual under magnification. Scratches, dents, abrasions, corrosion, and environmental damage occur after a coin leaves the mint and generally do not qualify as valuable mint errors. Dirt can also hide important details, but collectors should be extremely careful when removing it. Aggressive cleaning or rubbing can permanently damage the coin's original surfaces. The 1974 with D issue does have legitimate varieties worth investigating. PCGS recognizes a 1974 with D double die obverse, where doubling can be seen in specific parts of the design, including the lettering. This is an example of why careful examination matters. A genuine double die is produced during the die-making process and is fundamentally different from random scratches or damage that occurred after the coin entered circulation. The claimed $530,000 current market value should therefore be treated as an unverified valuation rather than an established price for a normal 1974 with D. Kennedy half dollar. Documented auction results for ordinary 1974 with D examples are dramatically lower. PCGS records an auction record of $2,468 for a regular 1974 with D in MS67+, demonstrating that even a very high-grade example does not approach $530,000. This does not mean that extraordinary mint errors have no significant value. A genuinely rare error can attract strong collector interest, particularly if it is authenticated by a respected grading service and supported by documented sales. But a valuation of $530,000 would require exceptional evidence. Collectors should never rely solely on an online claim, social media post, or unverified price guide when assigning such a spectacular value. For anyone examining a possible treasure coin, the first step is to inspect the date D mint mark, lettering, portrait, rim, reverse, edge, and overall strike. A good magnifying glass or loupe can reveal details that are difficult to see with the naked eye. The coin should also be weighed accurately and measured when appropriate. Comparing the suspected feature with photographs of authenticated examples can help determine whether the characteristic is worth professional investigation. Collectors should also remember that condition matters. Almost very fine circulated coins normally command much less than high-grade mint-state examples. Scratches and surface wear can reduce desirability. Dirt itself does not make a coin rare, and cleaning a coin can actually make the situation worse. A suspected error should be preserved exactly as found whenever possible. Professional authentication is especially important if the coin appears to contain a major mint error. A reputable grading service can examine the coin's authenticity, condition, variety, and error characteristics. If the feature is genuine and recognized, certification can provide much stronger evidence for a market valuation. Collector demand for the 1,974 with D. Kennedy $half ultimately depends on rarity, authenticity, condition, variety recognition, eye appeal, and documented market history. The ordinary circulated coin is relatively accessible, but a genuinely unusual example can become much more desirable. In conclusion, the 1,974 D. Kennedy $half is a historically significant American coin with a recognizable Kennedy design, copper-nickel-clad composition, approximately 30.61 mm diameter, approximately 11.30 gram weight, 2.15 mm thickness, and a substantial mintage. The normal coin is not extraordinarily rare, but certain varieties and genuine mint errors make this issue worth examining carefully. The claimed $530,000 value should not be considered a confirmed market price without professional authentication and credible sales evidence. Still, the possibility of discovering something unusual is what makes coin collecting so exciting. A worn Kennedy $half sitting unnoticed in an old collection, drawer, or coin jar could contain a feature that most people would never recognize. Examine the mint mark, study the lettering, protect the surfaces, compare the coin with authenticated examples, and seek professional evaluation before assigning an extraordinary value. Next up, the 1,983 with P. Kennedy $half is an interesting piece of American coinage that can become especially exciting when a collector discovers an unusual feature near the mint mark or elsewhere on the coin. A circulated example with scratches, surface wear, and an imperfect appearance may not attract much attention from the average person. But in the world of coin collecting, an unusual characteristic can sometimes turn an ordinary-looking coin into a piece worthy of careful investigation. The Kennedy $half has a fascinating historical background. The series was introduced in 1964 as a tribute to President John F. Kennedy. Following his assassination in November 1963, the obverse portrait was designed by Gilroy Roberts, while the reverse was designed by Frank Gasparro. The Kennedy design became one of the most recognizable images on American coins and has continued on the $half denomination for decades. The 1,983 with P. Kennedy $half was struck at the Philadelphia Mint and carries the P Mint mark. According to PCGS, the 1,983P had a mintage of 34,139,000 coins. That production figure means that the normal 1,983P is not automatically rare simply because of its date and mint mark. However, collectors pay much closer attention to particular varieties, errors, and exceptionally well-preserved examples. The coin has a diameter of approximately 30.61 millimeters and a standard weight of about 11.30 grams according to PCGS. NGC lists the diameter at approximately 30.6 millimeters and the weight at 11.34 grams. The coin is made from copper-nickel-clad copper with a 75% copper and 25% nickel outer composition over a pure copper center. Its edge is reeded with approximately 150 reeds, and its thickness is about 2.15 millimeters. The most important feature in this particular description is the reported P-error mint mark. It is essential to understand that the P mint mark itself is normal on a 1983 with P Kennedy half dollar. Therefore, simply seeing a P does not make the coin an error. For the coin to have a genuine mint mark error, there would need to be a specific abnormal characteristic that can be demonstrated to have originated during the minting process. This distinction matters because circulated coins can develop scratches, dents, abrasions, and other marks that can make letters or mint marks appear unusual. A genuine mint error should show characteristics consistent with the manufacturing process rather than damage that occurred after the coin entered circulation. The almost extremely fine condition described for this example means that the coin has experienced circulation but still retains a significant amount of its original design detail. However, scratches and surface wear can reduce its appeal and normally prevent it from competing with pristine mint state examples. Collectors should therefore evaluate the suspected error separately from the coin's grade. One particularly interesting characteristic associated with 1983 with P. Kennedy half dollars is the no FG variety. FG refers to the initials of reverse designer Frank Gasparo, which normally appear near the eagle on the reverse. NGC specifically identifies 1983 P no FG examples as a recognized variety with higher values for exceptional uncirculated pieces. This is an important reminder that collectors should inspect the reverse as carefully as the obverse and mint mark. The reported $430,000 current market value should be treated as a claimed valuation rather than an established market price. Available PCGS data for the regular 1983 with P shows an auction record of $805 for an MS66 example, while NGC's guide gives substantially lower values for ordinary circulated coins. A $430,000 valuation would therefore require extraordinary evidence, such as a previously recognized major mint error or extremely rare variety that has been professionally authenticated and supported by credible market transactions. This does not mean that unusual 1983 with P. Kennedy half dollars are worthless. Quite the opposite. Genuine varieties and mint errors can attract strong collector interest. But the exact characteristic must be identified before a value can be determined. A strange-looking P, unusual mark, or damaged surface should never automatically be described as a valuable mint error. For collectors, the best approach is to examine the date, P mint mark, lettering, portrait, rim, reverse, FG, initials, edge, and overall strike under magnification. Compare suspected characteristics with confirmed examples from reputable numismatic references. Accurate measurements can also help determine whether a coin has an unusual planchet or other production-related problem. Collectors should also avoid cleaning the coin. Scrubbing away dirt or polishing scratches can permanently damage the surface and reduce collector appeal. If the coin appears to contain a genuine mint error or recognized variety, it should be preserved in its current condition and submitted to a respected professional grading or authentication service. Collector demand ultimately depends on rarity, authenticity, condition, variety recognition, eye appeal, and documented sales. A normal circulated 1983 with P is generally inexpensive, but an authenticated unusual example can become significantly more desirable. Professional certification is particularly important if someone believes a coin could be worth an extraordinary amount. In conclusion, the 1983p Kennedy half-dollar is an important modern American coin with a recognizable presidential design. Copper nickel-clad composition, approximately 30.61 millimeter diameter, roughly 11.30 gram weight, and a mintage of 34,139 zeroths. Its normal form is not a $430,000 coin, but certain varieties and genuine mint errors can make individual examples much more interesting. The claimed $430,000 value should therefore be verified before being treated as a market value. The real hidden treasure may be the unusual feature that separates one coin from millions of ordinary examples. People can easily spend or overlook coins without examining them closely. That is why every unusual Kennedy half-dollar deserves careful inspection. Look at the mint mark, study the reverse, check for recognized varieties, protect the original surfaces, and obtain professional authentication before making a major valuation claim. Next up, the 2000 with P Kennedy half-dollar is a fascinating, modern American coin that can easily be overlooked when found in circulation. At first glance, a circulated example with scratches and ordinary signs of use may appear to be nothing more than a 50-cent piece. However, collectors know that unusual mint characteristics, varieties, and genuine mint errors can sometimes make an otherwise ordinary coin worth investigating. The important question is not simply whether the coin has a P mint mark, but whether there is a specific and authentic error associated with it. The Kennedy half-dollar has an important place in United States history. The series began in 1964, shortly after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in November 1963, the U.S. Mint created the half-dollar as a tribute to the former president. The obverse portrait was designed by Gilroy Roberts, while the reverse was designed by Frank Gasparo. Kennedy's portrait quickly became one of the most recognizable designs in American coinage, and the denomination has continued for generations. The 2000 with P Kennedy half-dollar was struck at the Philadelphia Mint and carries the P Mint mark. PCGS records a mintage of approximately 600,000 coins. Despite being a modern issue, many examples have survived, and PCGS describes the 2000p as a relatively common Kennedy half-dollar. Its survival estimates show that large numbers remain available, particularly in circulated and lower mint state grades. The coin's physical specifications are also important. The 2000 with P Kennedy half-dollar has a diameter of approximately 30.61 millimeters and weighs about 11.30 grams. It is composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel over a pure copper center, giving it the familiar copper-nickel-clad appearance. The coin has a reeded edge with approximately 150 reeds. Its thickness is approximately 2.15 millimeters. These specifications can help collectors investigate suspected errors because a significant difference in weight, diameter, or edge characteristics may provide evidence of an unusual planchet or production problem. The most important feature in this description is the reported P error mint mark. The presence of the P mint mark itself is completely normal for a 2000 with P Kennedy half-dollar. It identifies the Philadelphia Mint and does not automatically make the coin an error. To establish a genuine mint mark error, collectors need to identify exactly what is unusual about the P, such as an authenticated doubled feature, unusual placement, abnormal shape caused during production, or another documented minting characteristic. This distinction is particularly important for a circulated coin with scratches. Post-mint damage can create unusual shapes, lines, distortions, and marks around letters and mint marks. A scratch made after the coin left the mint is not the same thing as a genuine mint error. Collectors should therefore avoid assuming that every unusual-looking mark represents a valuable mistake. The described condition is almost very fine and circulated with scratches. This means the coin has experienced normal circulation and has lost some of its original detail. Scratches can further reduce its collector appeal. While condition is important, the presence of a genuine major error can sometimes matter more than ordinary wear. Nevertheless, the error must first be proven authentic. The reported $400,000 current market value should be treated as a claim requiring verification. Available PCGS records for the regular 2000 with P issue show an auction record of only $764 for an MS68 example, despite that being a very high-grade specimen. PCGS also estimates substantial survival for the issue, reinforcing the fact that the ordinary 2000P is not an extremely rare coin. Therefore, a $400,000 valuation cannot reasonably be assigned to a normal circulated 2000 with P simply because it has a P mint mark or scratches. Such an extraordinary price would require an exceptional and professionally authenticated mint error, an extremely rare variety or another characteristic with strong documented market evidence. Collectors should be cautious of internet claims that attach enormous values to ordinary coins without providing certification or actual auction records. Nevertheless, the 2000P Kennedy half-dollar can still be worth examining. Collectors should carefully inspect the P mint mark, date, lettering, portrait, rim, reverse, edge, and overall strike. A magnifying glass, or coin loop, can reveal details that are difficult to see with the naked eye. The suspected feature should also be compared with authenticated examples and recognized error references. Weight is another useful test. A normal coin should be close to its published specification. A significant weight difference may suggest a wrong plancher, missing material, or another unusual production issue, although damaged coins can also lose weight. Measurements should therefore be considered together with the coin's physical appearance, rather than used as proof by themselves. Collectors should also never clean a suspected valuable coin. Scrubbing, polishing, scraping, or using chemicals can permanently damage the surface and make authentication more difficult. Even a dirty-looking coin should generally be left in its current condition until an expert has examined it. Original surfaces are important evidence when determining whether unusual marks were created at the mint or afterward. Collector demand depends on authenticity, rarity, condition, variety recognition, eye appeal, and documented sales. A normal circulated 2000 with P. Kennedy half-dollar is common, but a genuine and unusual mint error could attract considerably more attention. Professional authentication from a respected grading service is especially important if someone believes a coin may have an extraordinary value. In conclusion, the 2000 with P. Kennedy half-dollar is a historically significant modern U.S. coin with a recognizable Kennedy design, copper nickel-clad composition, approximately 30.61 mm diameter, 11.30 gram weight, approximately 2.15 mm thickness, and a mintage of 22.6 million coins. The standard issue is not extraordinarily rare, but unusual and authenticated errors can make individual examples much more interesting. The claimed $400,000 value should not be considered a confirmed market price without professional authentication and credible documented sales. Still, This is what makes coin collecting exciting. A Kennedy half-dollar that looks ordinary may contain a detail that most people never notice. Someone could easily spend or overlook such a coin without examining it carefully. The best approach is to inspect the P mint mark, study the entire coin under magnification, compare unusual characteristics with recognized examples, protect the original surfaces, and seek professional authentication if a genuine mint error appears possible. The true hidden treasure is not simply the large dollar figure attached to the coin, it is the possibility that an overlooked piece of American history contains a rare characteristic that separates it from millions of ordinary examples.